You've felt this before. You make a decision, and in that moment, it feels right, completely right. But later, you look back and question it. Why you said that, why you chose that, why you didn't stop yourself. And it's confusing because it felt like you were thinking, but what if you weren't?
Yeah, that's the quiet, slightly unsettling reality of just, being human. And it's exactly what we really need to confront today.
Right, so welcome to this deep dive. Today, our mission is, well, it's intensely personal. We aren't going to sit here and talk about abstract economic theories, and we are definitely not going to talk about how, like, other people out there in the world behave. We are looking directly at you.
Just you.
The person listening to this right now. We have this absolutely fascinating stack of research in front of us, and it's primarily anchored in the groundbreaking work of Nobel laureate Daniel Kahneman, specifically his book Thinking Fast and Slow, along with just decades of behavioral economics and cognitive psychology research.
Right.
But our goal here is to really explore the startling truth about how your mind actually works and to introduce you to the secret author of your daily choices.
And look, it does require a willingness to sit with some discomfort as we go through this material, because we are going to examine a core assumption that you, the listener, likely hold about your own consciousness.
Yeah, it's going to get a little weird.
It is, because you probably navigate your day feeling this really strong sense of agency. You believe you're the one sitting at the control panel, right? Steering the ship, weighing the facts. But as we unpack the actual mechanisms of your brain today, you will likely realize that this feeling of absolute control is, in many ways, just an evolutionary illusion.
Okay, so to put it simply, you think you are in charge of your mind, but mostly your mind is running on this automatic track that you don't even see.
Yes, that is a biological reality. And to truly understand how that illusion is maintained, we have to, look at the architecture of human thought. The research basically divides your cognitive processes into two distinct modes. Kahneman calls them System 1 and System 2. But we shouldn't think of them as literal physical halves of your brain. Instead, think of them as two radically different versions of you living inside your head.
I love that framing.
Yeah.
So let's pull that out of the academic realm entirely and just make it visceral. I want you, the listener, to experience this firsthand right now. I am going to say 2 words to you.
Just 2 words?
Yep. I just want you to listen and notice what happens internally. You ready?
Go ahead.
Vomit. Banana. Now just pause. Take a tiny inventory of the last 3 seconds.
It's wild, right? Because a complete cascade of complex biological and cognitive events just triggered inside your nervous system.
Yeah.
And you did not consciously authorize a single one of them.
No, you definitely didn't. My own stomach gave a little flip just saying it.
Exactly. The moment you processed the first word, a mild threat response fired. Your body physically reacted, even if it was just on a microscopic level. You likely experienced this fleeting wave of unpleasant, vivid images. Your facial muscles might have even twitched toward an expression of disgust.
Just a little scrunch of the nose.
Right. Your heart rate might have ticked up by a fraction of a beat. You might have felt a subtle physical urge to just pull back from wherever you're sitting.
And it didn't stop at the physical reaction, did it? Because your brain instantly tried to make a story out of it.
It always does.
Yeah, it looked at those 2 incredibly different words, one really disgusting and one completely benign, and it built a bridge. You probably imagined a scenario where, I don't know, the fruit was spoiled or where eating the banana caused the sickness. You created a causal link out of thin air.
And that right there, that is the defining characteristic of this mode of thought. This entire constellation of responses, the physical recoil, the emotional shift, the sudden linking of ideas that happened to you in milliseconds.
Faster than you could even blink.
Way faster. You didn't intend to do it. You couldn't have willed yourself to stop it if you tried. This is System 1. Let's just call it the automatic you. It operates instantly, effortlessly, and completely under the surface of your conscious awareness.
It's just always running in the background.
Always. It is an associative machine, right? It's constantly scanning the environment, linking concepts, and generating emotional responses before you even know what's happening.
But there's a biological reason for that speed, isn't there? It's not just random neurons firing for fun.
Yeah.
If I'm a prehistoric human and I see a strange plant and I see someone get violently ill, I don't have time to sit down and run a statistical regression.
No, you really don't.
I need an instant, permanent neural link that just screams, plant equals danger.
Precisely. The automatic you evolved for survival, period. It operates on heuristics, which are, essentially just mental shortcuts. It relies on pattern recognition, jumping to conclusions based on incredibly minimal data so you can react to threats before you consciously perceive them.
Like when someone throws a ball at your face and you duck before you even register, it's a ball.
Exactly. Or, it's what makes you slam on the brakes of your car before you fully realize the vehicle ahead of you has stopped. It is an incredibly powerful, deeply ancient system.
Okay, so that's the automatic you. Fast, emotional, associative, keeps you alive.
Right.
Let's contrast that by meeting the other version of you. I'm going to give you, the listener, a very different kind of problem now, and I actually want you to try to solve it right now.
Okay, let's see it.
Multiply 17 by 24.
Now, notice the immediate shift in your internal state. The automatic you, it recognizes the symbols. It knows this is a math problem.
It knows what multiplication is.
Exactly. It might even offer a very, very vague intuition that the answer is somewhere around, 400. But to get the precise answer, the automatic you just hits a wall. It has to hand the reins over to something else entirely.
You can physically feel the shift. The moment you actually try to calculate 17 times 24, it feels like, well, moving through mud. It is labor. You are suddenly retrieving a set of mathematical rules from your long-term memory.
You're holding intermediate numbers in a mental workspace.
Yeah, perhaps losing track of a digit and having to force your focus back to pull it into view. If we were conducting pupillometry on you literally measuring the diameter of your eyes right now, we would see your pupils dilating significantly.
And your blood pressure has likely risen. Your muscles are slightly tensed.
It feels like work. Because it is.
It is work. This is system 2, the deliberate you. This part of you allocates highly focused attention to effortful mental activities. It is the part of your mind that handles complex computations, follows novel rules, suppresses impulses, and makes conscious choices.
It's the thinker.
Right. It operates sequentially and logically. And here's a truly crucial point when you think of yourself, when you construct your identity in your head. This is the version of you that you picture. You identify with this conscious, reasoning, deliberate self.
I always see this dynamic like an incredibly wealthy CEO and an army of invisible assistants.
Okay, I like where this is going.
Right. The deliberate you is the CEO sitting up in the corner office. The CEO thinks they run the entire company. But in reality, there are a million assistants. The automatic. You running the entire building, filtering the mail, making the daily trades, managing the personnel, and occasionally they just slide a single piece of paper onto the CEO's desk for a signature.
Just a little summary report.
Exactly. And the CEO just signs it and says, look at the great decision I just made.
I do like the framework of that analogy, but let me challenge the power dynamic there just a little bit. Because it implies the CEO is still the ultimate authority, just a bit disconnected from the day-to-day.
Right, like they could step in if they really wanted to.
Exactly. But the cognitive reality is much starker. The CEO isn't just disconnected. The CEO is fundamentally dependent on the assistants to even interpret reality. Most of what you do every single day bypasses the corner office entirely.
Oh, wow. Okay, give me an example.
Well, orienting to a sudden sound in the room, reading a billboard as you drive past, detecting subtle hostility in a coworker's voice before they even finish a sentence. You don't consciously do these things. They happen to you.
Because it's a deliberate thing. You had to manually process every single facial expression, every word, every micro shift in tone. We'd be paralyzed.
Completely paralyzed. We wouldn't be able to cross the street.
So the assistants are doing all the heavy lifting just so we can function.
Yes. The automatic you is effortlessly originating impressions, feelings, and impulses all day long. It generates a continuous flowing stream of suggestions. And these intuitive suggestions actually become the main sources of the explicit beliefs and deliberate choices you think you are making consciously.
It's like the CEO is trapped in an office with no windows.
That is exactly it, a windowless room, relying entirely on the assistants to tell them what the world outside looks like.
Let me just pause here and put this really simply for you, the listener. To put it simply, you think you are analyzing the world and making careful decisions, but your automatic mind is constantly feeding you a pre-filtered version of reality, and your deliberate mind is mostly just nodding along and signing off on it.
Nodding along, precisely. Because the deliberate mind, the CEO, is inherently lazy.
Wait, lazy?
Extremely lazy. It operates on a strict principle of least effort. If it doesn't have to engage, it absolutely will not. And that leads us to a fascinating and honestly slightly terrifying realization about how you actually form judgments.
Right, because if the automatic you is constantly taking these shortcuts, just to keep the CEO from having to work. It's going to lead us into traps.
Traps.
To show you exactly how this trap feels to fall into, I want to give you a famous, very simple puzzle from the research. It's called the cognitive reflection test. Just listen and pay close attention to the very first answer that materializes in your mind. Ready?
Here we go. A bat and a ball together cost $1.10. The bat costs exactly $1 more than the ball. How much does the ball cost?
Listen to the voice in your head right now. I guarantee there is a number practically screaming to be recognized.
10 cents.
10 cents.
Yeah.
The number 10 just materialized out of nowhere. It feels incredibly intuitive. It feels coherent. It feels completely right.
But it's wrong.
It is entirely mathematically wrong.
Which is wild because it feels so right.
It does. But let's do the actual math, engaging the deliberate you for a second. If the ball costs 10 cents and the bat costs $1 more than the ball, then the bat would cost $1.10.
Right.
Together, that makes $1.20. That violates the premise of the problem. The actual mathematical answer is 5 cents. The bat is $1.05. The ball is 5 cents, making the total exactly $1.10.
I want to push back on this, or rather, I want to really dissect the feeling of it. Because if my brain is handing me an answer that is mathematically false, shouldn't I feel some internal friction?
You would think so. Right. Shouldn't there be like a cognitive check engine light that comes on? Why does that 10-cent answer feel so inherently true in the moment before you do the math? We know from the data that incredibly smart people, students at Harvard and MIT, routinely land on 10 cents and just accept it. Why are there no alarm bells?
Because the automatic you does not possess an alarm bell for truth. It doesn't have one. It only has a gauge for what we call cognitive ease.
Cognitive ease. Okay, break that down for me.
This is a fundamental concept to understand about yourself. Your brain constantly monitors how smoothly it is processing information. If a thought is easy to process, if it flows smoothly without any mental strain, your brain flags it as safe, familiar, and therefore true.
So in the bat and ball problem, the numbers 110 and $1, they naturally and cleanly separate into $1.10.
Exactly. The operation is effortless, and that lack of effort creates a powerful sensation of cognitive ease.
So we confuse the ease of thinking with the accuracy of the thought?
We completely conflate them. When the automatic you processes information smoothly, it sends a signal up to the deliberate you that the environment is totally safe. There's no threat, no complex paradox to resolve, and therefore absolutely no need to mobilize the heavy machinery of System 2.
The CEO stays asleep.
The CEO stays asleep, and you equate the ease of processing with the truth of the statement. The research on this is stunning. It shows that if you simply print a false statement in a clearer, higher contrast font, people are actually more likely to believe it's true.
Wait, really? Just the font?
Just the font. The visual ease of reading literally translates into an illusion of truth in your brain.
That is staggering. The fact that the physical contrast of ink on a page can bypass my critical thinking, it's almost embarrassing.
It's humbling for sure.
But it brings up a deeply ingrained shortcut the automatic you takes, which Kahneman calls substitution. Because since the deliberate mind is lazy and relies on cognitive ease, the automatic mind steps in and plays a massive trick on us when we face something complex.
Yes. The mechanism of substitution is perhaps the most pervasive cognitive illusion we experience as humans.
How does it work?
Well, when you are faced with a target question that is hard to question, that requires rigorous analysis, deep computation, or searching your long-term memory for facts, your automatic mind steps in to save energy. It invisibly swaps that hard target question for a related but much easier heuristic question.
Give me a real-world example of this. Let's make it tangible. Let's say I'm an investor looking at a massive financial decision.
Perfect. There is a brilliant case study Kahneman references involving a highly successful financial executive who invested tens of millions of dollars into Ford Motor Company stock.
Okay, huge stakes.
Right. Now, the hard target question he should have been answering was, is Ford stock currently underpriced relative to its intrinsic value and future market share?
Which is a brutally hard question.
Exactly. Answering that requires analyzing balance sheets, forecasting global supply chains, understanding macroeconomic trends. It requires an immense amount of cognitive strain.
It requires the CEO to wake up, turn on the lights, and do a ton of math.
Exactly. So what did his automatic you do instead? It substituted the question. When asked later why he made that colossal financial decision, the executive didn't talk about price-to-earnings ratios.
What do you say?
He noted that he had recently attended an auto show, he admired the vehicles, and he just thought to himself, boy, do they know how to make a car.
Wow. So he swapped the impossibly hard question, is the stock underpriced, for the incredibly easy emotional question, do I like Ford cars?
Yes. And this is known specifically as the effect heuristic. We substitute a question about our feelings for a question about facts. He answered the easy emotional question, but, and this is the terrifying part, he genuinely believed he had answered the hard financial question.
He didn't even notice the switch.
He was completely satisfied with his decision. He didn't notice the substitution at all. The cognitive ease of knowing he liked the cars provided him with a profound yet completely unearned sense of confidence in his multi-million-dollar investment.
It's almost like an optical illusion, but for logic.
That's a great way to put it.
We look right at the flawed reasoning, and we simply cannot see it, which I think leads into another massive blind spot: how our brain treats missing information. Because if I'm judging someone for a job or deciding whether a politician is competent, I rarely have all the facts. But I never feel like I'm guessing. I always feel like I know.
And that feeling of knowing is exactly what gets us in trouble. That is because of a cognitive principle Kahneman abbreviates as WYSIED. What you see is all there is.
What you see is all there is.
Right. The automatic U is, as we said, an associative machine. And its primary directive is to build a coherent story. So it takes whatever tiny scraps of evidence are currently available. Maybe the candidate wears a nice suit, maintains good eye contact, and shares your alma mater, and it weaves a perfectly logical, cohesive narrative about their overall competence.
The halo effect. Like if I like one thing about you, my brain just assumes I like everything about you.
Precisely. It creates a seamless story. But the automatic U is completely insensitive to the quality and the quantity of the data it doesn't have.
It just ignores what's missing.
Completely ignores the massive holes in the data. You don't have enough information to know how that candidate behaves under stress, or how they handle failure, or if they're actually a terrible manager, but you don't feel doubt.
But why don't we feel doubt? I mean, if I'm missing 90% of the data, shouldn't my confidence be at 10%?
Logically, yes. But cognitively, no. Because doubt is a function of system 2.
Oh, really?
Yes. To feel doubt, your mind has to simultaneously hold multiple conflicting ideas or potential realities in your working memory. You have to juggle them.
Which takes effort.
Exactly. The automatic carber, you cannot do that. It cannot deal with ambiguity. It suppresses ambiguity instantly to create a clean, simple narrative. It operates entirely on the principle of WYSIED. It takes the limited evidence, ignores what is missing, and jumps to a conclusion that makes the best possible story. The consistency of the story is what gives you confidence, not the completeness of the evidence.
Wow. Let me pause and apply the simplicity rule here for the listener. To put it simply, when life asks you a hard question, your brain secretly answers an easier one. It builds a bulletproof story out of tiny, incomplete scraps of information. And it does this so smoothly, you never even notice the switch.
You never notice. You just walk away feeling a sense of absolute certainty.
So this brings up a massive structural question for me. If we know the automatic U is riddled with these biases, right? If it falls for the halo effect, if it substitutes easy questions for hard ones, and if it completely ignores missing data, why don't we just mandate that the deliberate U takes over?
What do you mean?
Like, why don't we just force ourselves to be perfectly rational, careful, and deliberate all the time? Just turn the CEO on and leave them on.
It's a fair question, but you are fighting a biological constraint. You physically cannot operate System 2 all the time.
Because it's hard.
More than just hard. Thinking true, deliberate, careful thinking is not some ethereal, weightless activity. It is a biological process that physically exhausts your body.
This is where I think we often get it wrong. We treat mental work as if it happens in this abstract cloud. We think of logic as a software program that can run infinitely as long as the computer is plugged in. But the brain is an organ. It requires calories. It generates waste.
Exactly. To feel the literal biological weight of this, let's examine an experiment Kahneman highlights called the add-3 task. It is a brilliant way to force extreme cognitive strain on a person.
Okay, walk us through it.
Imagine you are seated in a lab. I set a metronome to beat exactly once per second. I read you a string of 4 numbers, let's say 5, 2, 9, 4. Your task is to wait for exactly 2 beats, and then, speaking flawlessly in time with the metronome, you have to add the number 3 to each of those digits and speak the new string aloud.
Okay, let me think. 5, 2, 9, 4.
Right.
Add 3 to each, so that becomes 8, 5, 2, 7.
Right, but you have to do it rhythmically, relentlessly, while I am giving you the next string of numbers.
Yes.
You are simultaneously holding the original numbers in your working memory, running a mathematical transformation on them, queuing them up to be spoken, and listening to the next input.
Just imagining doing that for 5 minutes makes my chest feel tight.
And that tension is entirely measurable. When subjects perform the add 3 task, their physiological state radically alters. As we discussed earlier, their pupils dilate massively, up to 50% larger.
That's huge.
Their heart rate spikes. And crucially, they are literally burning through the blood glucose in their nervous system at an accelerated rate. Deliberate thought consumes energy the exact same way a sprinting muscle consumes energy.
So relying on the deliberate you is a mental sprint. It's an agonizing amount of effort. And no human being can sprint for 16 hours a day.
You cannot. Your capacity for deliberate conscious control is drawn from a finite pool of mental energy. Every single time you engage System 2, whether you are carefully analyzing a spreadsheet, suppressing your anger during a frustrating meeting, or simply resisting the urge to check your phone, you are drawing down that shared pool of energy.
And there's a term for this, right?
Yes. Psychologists call this phenomenon ego depletion.
Ego depletion. Let's find a way to visualize this for the listener, because I often hear people compare it to a smartphone battery, but that feels a bit, I don't know, mechanical. I think of it more like a deep-sea diver's oxygen tank.
I like that.
When you wake up, your tank is full. You can dive deep into complex problems, hold your breath, and do the heavy lifting of analytical thought. But every act of self-control, every hard decision, uses up some of that oxygen. And by 4 p.m., the tank is empty. You physically have to surface. You can only float on the automatic currents at that point.
The oxygen tank is a highly accurate metaphor because it emphasizes the biological necessity of returning to the surface. When your cognitive oxygen runs out, your deliberate you loosens its grip on your behavior.
And the assistants take over.
Yes. System 1, the automatic you, which is impulsive, emotional, and reactive, just grabs the wheel. And this is heavily supported by research. The psychologist Roy Baumeister conducted foundational studies on this.
It was a radish experiment, right?
Yes, a classic experiment. Subjects were brought into a room smelling strongly of freshly baked chocolate chip cookies.
Cruel.
Very cruel. One group was allowed to eat the cookies. The other group was instructed to resist the cookies and eat radishes instead.
So the radish group is burning their cognitive oxygen just to exercise self-control. Sitting there smelling warm cookies, eating a bitter radish.
Exactly. They are depleting their system too. Afterward, both groups were given a complex, unsolvable puzzle. The people who ate the cookies persisted on the puzzle for nearly 20 minutes before giving up.
Because their tanks were still full.
Right. But the people who had depleted their willpower resisting the cookies, the radish eaters, gave up after just 8 minutes. Their system, too, was utterly exhausted. When your deliberate mind is depleted, you are more likely to yield temptation, you are more likely to make errors in judgment, and you are far more likely to snap at your spouse after a long day of intense focus.
Because keeping your temper requires the CEO to step in and override the assistant who just wants to yell. And if the CEO is exhausted and asleep, the assistant just sends the angry email.
Exactly. It's the path of least resistance. And the limitations of System 2 aren't just about endurance either. They're also about bandwidth.
Bandwidth, what do you mean?
When you do decide to allocate all of your cognitive oxygen to one specific task, the cost is extreme tunnel vision. You literally lose the ability to perceive the rest of the world.
Oh, this is perfectly demonstrated by the famous invisible gorilla experiment, isn't it? Christopher Chabris and Daniel Simons.
It is the ultimate proof of cognitive blindness.
Walk us through it.
Participants are shown a video of 2 teams passing basketballs. One team wears white shirts, the other black. The viewers are given a strict System 2 task: count the exact number of passes made by the white team while ignoring the black team.
Which requires intense, focused attention. You really have to track the ball.
Yes. And halfway through the video, a person in a full, incredibly obvious gorilla suit walks right into the middle of the players, thumps their chest, and walks off.
And it's not a subtle trick. They are on screen for 9 full seconds.
It is completely blatant. Yet, roughly half of the people who watch the video and count the passes completely miss the gorilla. They do not see it at all, and when they're told about it later, they refuse to believe it was there, insisting the video was switched.
What does that actually mean about our brains, though? How can we be functionally blind to a giant gorilla on a screen?
It means that focus is a zero-sum game. System 2 has a strict processing limit. When your deliberate mind is intensely engaged in counting those passes, you withdraw attention from everything else in your visual field.
You just shut it down.
You become effectively blind to the unexpected. You cannot keep your deliberate mind fully engaged on a complex task and maintain a wide awareness of your environment. It is biologically impossible.
Okay, let me summarize this with our simplicity rule for everyone listening.
Yeah.
To put it simply, your brain is wired to be lazy to save its limited energy.
Yeah.
You physically cannot think deeply about everything. Focus is a zero-sum game. If you are staring at the math problem, you are blind to the gorilla.
That is the biological reality, which forces us into a very strategic position because we cannot slow down and deeply analyze every single thing we do, or we would be paralyzed.
Right, we'd never get out of bed.
Yeah.
So the million-dollar question is, how do we know when to trust the automatic you and when to force the deliberate you to wake up?
Right.
Because we hear all the time about the power of intuition.
We do.
We hear stories about, blink moments where someone just knew the right answer instantly.
Intuition is a real phenomenon, absolutely, but it is highly conditional. The cognitive psychologist Gary Klein spent years studying exactly this, how experts make rapid life-or-death decisions. He studied veteran firefighters. A commander might be inside a flaming house, suddenly feel a visceral, terrifying urge to get out and order his team to evacuate mere seconds before the floor collapses. That looks like magic. It looks like a mystical sixth sense.
But it's not magic. It's the automatic. You recognizing a pattern.
Exactly. Kahneman and Klein eventually realized they were looking at two sides of the same coin. The firefighter's intuition is valid because they operate in what we call a valid environment.
A valid environment.
Yes, a valid environment is one that has highly regular, predictable rules and provides immediate, unambiguous feedback. Fire behaves according to the laws of physics. Over thousands of hours of experience, the firefighter's automatic learned quid. He learns the subtle cues, maybe the fire is unusually quiet, or the heat is radiating from the wrong direction.
So the conscious mind doesn't process it, but the associative machine flags the anomaly instantly.
Exactly. Another valid environment would be a chessboard. A grandmaster can walk past a game, glance at the board for literally 1 second, and say, "White mates in 3."
They aren't calculating all the moves in that second.
No, their system 1 simply recognizes the pattern because the rules of chess never change. If you have genuine prolonged practice in a highly regular, valid environment, you can trust your gut. Your intuition is simply recognition.
Okay, and this feels like the danger zone. What if you are trying to predict the stock market? Or decide who to marry? Or figure out if a charismatic job applicant will actually be a good cultural fit for your company in 2 years?
Well, I would argue those are the exact opposite of a valid environment.
They are what psychologists call wicked environments.
Wicked environments. I love that term.
Yes, there are no strict rules. The variables are infinite. And the feedback is delayed, ambiguous, or just completely non-existent.
Right. When you are making major life predictions in wicked environments, you must recognize that you are walking into a cognitive minefield.
Because if I rely on my automatic you in a wicked environment, it won't say, I don't know. It hates not knowing. It'll just take a shortcut.
Exactly. It will substitute the impossibly hard question of, will this marriage work in 10 years? For the easy question of, am I currently happy? It will use the halo effect to build a story out of flimsy evidence, like how much you enjoyed one date.
It just weaves a narrative.
Yes. In wicked environments, the feeling of intuitive certainty is an illusion created by cognitive ease. You absolutely cannot trust it. In those moments, you have to deliberately force your lazy, energy-hoarding system 2 to wake up.
You have to hunt for the gorilla.
You have to actively search for the missing evidence.
You have to accept the discomfort of cognitive strain. You have to do the math.
You have to do math. You have to learn to recognize the specific situations where mistakes are likely, high stakes, complex variables, wicked environments, and force yourself to slow down even when your gut is screaming that it knows the answer.
So, as we wrap up this deep dive, let's bring it back to you, the listener, and your daily life. It's an uneasy realization to sit with. The voice inside your head, the one telling you it has everything figured out, the one that feels so confident and certain when you judge a coworker or make a financial choice, is often just a storyteller covering up a guess.
And look, there is a profound vulnerability in accepting this about yourself.
There really is.
You are not as in control as you feel. Your perceptions are constantly skewed by cognitive ease, your complex judgments are shaped by invisible substitutions, and your battery for self-control is constantly draining. but recognizing that inherent blindness is actually the only way to begin to truly see.
Yeah, you have to accept the severe limitations of your own mind to have any chance of making better choices. You can't fire the millions of invisible assistants running the automatic you, but the CEO can finally realize they need to start double-checking the paperwork.
Yeah. Exactly. You can't turn System 1 off. You will always react instantly to a threat. You will always find cognitive ease seductive, and you will always be prone to jumping to conclusions. But you can learn to spot the traps it sets for you. You can learn the terrain of your own mind.
As you move forward today, I want to leave you with a lingering thought, something to reflect on long after this audio stops playing. I want you to make this entirely about your own life. Think about the last major life-changing choice you made. You weighed the pros and cons. You felt a deep sense of certainty. But look back at that exact moment. Were you actually thinking carefully? Or did your mind just tell you a story that you wanted to believe?